Welcome back to Champion News Talk Radio, brought to you by championnews.net, your choice for the conservative voice. This is Carol Parisi, and today our founder, Jack Roeser, and myself have Bruno Behrend with us. Bruno is discussing the pension and constitutionality and solutions. Bruno, what were you saying during the break?
Well, it's first of all, you've got the pension guarantee clause in the state constitution, but what really backs this stuff up are a line of federal cases that basically say that pension rights are contract rights, and you can't break a contract. So the clause plus the federal laws and the federal cases that this is a contract right basically make it so that if you try to get rid of pensions, if you try to cut pensions or lower pensions for existing workers who have vested rights, in theory, they say, you're breaking our contract rights. Well, this is a novel approach, and I'm not saying it would work, but it would be something that I would argue is worth trying. Any contract has to be between, for anybody who knows law or understands something about law, a contract has to be between two parties that are at arm's length transaction. This wasn't an arm's length transaction. Nobody voted for these two, no taxpayer voted for these two union thugs to be able to get this huge pension for working one day in the public system. This wasn't a contract, or if it was a contract, the politicians who made these deals are supposedly acting as agents for the taxpayers, for the state, for the citizens. And they're not good agents. As a matter of fact, they were bought and paid for agents by the taxpayers' opponents in the unions. So I would go after the whole thing in federal court to say this. Yes, pensions are a contract right, but this was not an arm's length transaction. This was a contract made by agents, politicians, local, municipal, and state legislators who were bought and paid for by the people working against the taxpayers, which are the unions.
And the residents of
just hold the phone, because you're onto a very important point in this thing, and that is, if it's a contract, there's about 4 different things that have to be. It has to be a legal thing, and you have to be qualified. But one of the things you have to have is a meeting of the minds.
Yeah.
Now, we all have watched the Supreme Court say, well, what did the founders intend that this thing should do? Oh, we'll go back to what the founders intended. And so the distortions done by politicians get waved out, and our Bill of Rights gets put into the thing. And they say, well, the founders intended such and so. Well, what did the founders intend in this thing that's been written on the budgets here? Well, that's in the law as it was put down in 1970.
Right.
So you would go down to one of the things in a contract is what was the meeting of the minds that occurred when they sanctified the contract in 1970? What was the meeting of the minds? Well, if we went by that, we'd have a surplus now. So they have. You're absolutely right. The bad agents have distorted the contract all along and changed it. They never were fair representatives of the people that have to pay for this thing. So why should the changes enacted merely by Madigan and his stinking legislature that went along with all his political ploys so that he could get all of the money fed into the politics and politics of Madigan and the Democrats largely, and some of the stupid Republicans that also sucked along in their wake. All of this crooked stuff has happened. Well, that can't possibly be sanctified as what the Constitution of the state of Illinois blessed way back in 1970.
Exactly, and you know, here's another interesting thing. Pension rights are supposedly guaranteed, but health care is not. There's nothing in the Constitution that says paying for health care. So again, really simple. If you make a pension over $100,000, you can pay much more or all of your health care, and if you're making over $200,000. But here's another clever little trick, and it doesn't cost the Illinois taxpayer a dime. Why not, instead of having service providers that are providing beds and health care and services for the poor and the indigent, instead of paying those service providers in IOUs, why not pay all the greedy, oily superintendents and teachers who are getting these huge pensions and all the people who have gamed the system, why not pay them in IOUs?
Rasputinniks. Give them Rasputinniks.
Yeah.
Very good idea.
Pay them in IOUs and pay the service providers.
Well, you know what? You're talking about gaming the system. I just want to speak
Let them
to
try
this.
and cash those things in.
I want to speak to this thing that happened that was posted on October 24th. They were lobbyists with no prior teaching experience. Okay, they were allowed to count their years as union employees toward their state teacher pension once they served a single day in 2007. Now, one of them is the political director for the Illinois Federation of Teachers and his fellow union lobbyist. Here's the deal. They made $93 for their 1 day at substitute teaching. They're not teachers, but they are going to receive $1.1 million by the time they turn 78. And the other one, 1.7 if they live to 84.
There's only one word for this, and it's not nice. It's that they are pigs feeding at the trough. They have bought and paid for politicians, and they have literally. This is a literal rape of the taxpayer, and
but
it's a rape
also raping the small teacher that works hard and expects a pension.
Exactly.
This is horrible.
Bruno's
They're
right
horrible.
about this.
They're horrible people. I mean, you just have to look them in the eye and tell them how horrible they are, and then ask them to please stop. And if they don't, every legal angle should be taken to take this money away from them.
Stephen Preckwinkle, ladies and gentlemen, was the political director, and David Piccoli. These are the names of the folks that are hurting the little guy.
Pension pigs.
The pension pigs.